Welcome to Under the Sun podcast. I'm Aileeah.
And I'm Irene. Grab a cup of coffee and your comfiest sweats and join us every Monday as two best friends discuss everything from raising free-range gremlins to business and really everything under the sun.
Let's get started, and thanks for being here. Today is one of the best days because we are interviewing a woman who has seen both of our hoo-has.
Don't remember.
You don't remember?
No,
It
you
wasn't
never
the best
remember. You never remember.
Well, there you go. If you're ever uncomfortable with having a doula, they don't remember.
No.
Here's the thing. I had the thought before, like, I was like, oh, I'm going to like keep all my clothes on and just be very private and then only like have my undies off.
You did not.
No, only my undies off towards like the end. I was naked like multiple times.
Yeah.
Like I remember seeing photos of like someone changed my bra and I was like, I don't even remember switching bras.
You did.
Did you actually think that though?
Yeah, I thought I would be really...
I would have been 100% naked, but Jake's like, please don't be one of those people that's just naked. I'm like, fine.
So
Fine.
What's funny is I was not nervous about birth, but like I was like, for some reason, really hung up on like picking an outfit to wear during labor. Joke's on me. Like somehow I ended up in my Reva shirt.
I loved that. I loved the
Why
Reba
was I
shirt.
wearing my Reva shirt during the... I mean, it was cozy, but...
Yeah. You just wanted something quick. You're like, get the Reba shirt.
I did?
I think it was something like that.
No.
It
Well.
was. Yeah, it really was. Yeah. Just get the
Are we
Reba
joking?
shirt. No joke.
I asked for the Reba shirt?
I think so. Something like that.
I don't remember. I just remember you. I don't remember actually. I don't remember much.
So this is probably like... This is a fun podcast because we have not... The last time we interviewed you, I was pregnant.
Very pregnant.
Very pregnant. And this is a unique situation because you were my doula. You saw my hoo-ha. You saw her hoo-ha.
Yeah.
And well, you'll probably see our hoo-has again
Yes.
because you'll be our doulas
Oh,
for subsequent children. How many are you going to have? 40?
I would.
I started my cycle.
started too late.
So the second, like I had my first cycle. You're welcome for this information, everybody. I had my first cycle since having Leo on... Crap. What's the Irish holiday?
Oh, St. Patrick's
Thank you.
Day.
Day after St. Patrick's Day. And then I was like, oh, more kids wouldn't be too bad. It's just like the body
Told ya.
knows.
Yes.
Like I had no cycle. I was like, no kids. And then one cycle and I'm like, give it to me. Come on.
I did.
That's
You
right.
were in labor at one point, and you were like, "I'm never doing this again." And then we all were just like, "That's what they all say."
Pretty much every mom says
Yeah.
that. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Never doing this again.
What's the number one thing that you hear, you think?
I don't want to do this anymore.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm done.
Yeah. Okay.
Yep.
What's your response to that? What would you say is your go-to like support phrase?
I mostly just remind moms like you are doing it. What
Yeah.
you're doing is working. You're working well with your body. Just reminding them the obvious to me, right? But when you're in labor, you just don't realize what you're actually doing, all the work that you're doing. So just reminding them of the reality that you are doing it. Every contraction you have done. And the next contraction you're going to do, what is the alternative?
Yeah.
Don't really have one.
Yeah.
So this baby is coming out.
Yeah.
Yep. Yep.
Also, something new that has happened since your last interview is you started a podcast.
I did. Yeah.
I
It's
listen to
pretty
every
exciting.
episode.
Today, I got an email notification that I have 500 all-time listens.
That's awesome.
So that's kind of an exciting thing.
It's all me.
It's all what?
It's all me.
It's all-
I just keep
it's
listening
Aileeah's
over
pressure.
and over again. I'm just like, oh, Shannon.
Dave's like, turn it off.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's exciting. 7
That's
episodes
amazing.
in and getting a lot of good feedback. I think some people were like, how are you going to have enough variety in birth stories? I'm like, you obviously are not a birth worker because every birth you go to is different and every family is different. And so building that relationship with people is so important to me and giving people an opportunity to talk about how birth has transformed them. So the podcast is called Birthing from the Inside Out. And yeah, just talking about how every birth, every pregnancy, every labor changes who you are. And it happens from the inside out. Also, you're pregnant. So your baby comes from the inside out. So
Yeah.
playing
Love
words.
it.
Yeah.
I love it. How'd you get that name?
My son, actually my 12-year-old son. Yeah, I was throwing around the idea of doing a podcast, dragging my feet as usual. And I was like, oh, I don't even know what I would call it. Like, what am I going to call this podcast if I'm talking about people being pregnant and, laboring and their birth stories? He's like, well, just call it from the inside out. And I was like, oh, that's perfect. So I started Googling tons of podcasts from the inside out, but not birthing from the inside out. So yeah,
Nice.
That's awesome.
It's great. It's exciting.
I love it because you have such a unique perspective because like you have the mom's story and what she remembers and what was impactful to her. And then you have like what you remember, which is sometimes like just different because like we are in that haze
Yes.
of, you know, laboring this la la land, as you called it earlier. I was not coherent, but there's certain parts of conversations I remember. And I remember being like obsessed with, not obsessed, but like no one could figure out the battery on my camera. I'm like, it's not that complicated. You plug in this little, and I'm like, and they're like, Leah, don't worry about it. I'm like, I know what I'm talking about.
That's right. Yeah.
And we
But-
still never figured it out. We just ditched your camera altogether, I think.
You did, but I'm like, guys, it's not that hard. But you have just a unique perspective because you saw, you see it differently.
And what
literally.
I feel is most transformational to most families is not their most transformational moments. So that is really interesting to me too. Whenever I think, oh, people will share this particular experience and they're like, oh, I don't even really remember that. So birth impacts birth workers too.
Oh, yeah.
So, you know, physicians, midwives, nurses, oh boy, lots of impacts on, healthcare providers. So it's fun to talk about and to share those things. So
You're good at it.
Yeah.
thanks.
Yeah,
I've enjoyed it.
You're the best.
Takes a lot of time. Oh, the podcast. Are you talking about the podcast?
I'm just talking about in general, like your doula work and your podcast. Like you do
Thank
it.
you.
Do you do it really well?
Thank
Yeah.
you. Appreciate that.
You have that that midweek revival voice. So I don't know if it's in the last episode. So last week we released Shannon's episode from season 1 of Under the Sun podcast. Season 2, I believe. And so now I'm not sure if we said it, but Shannon does have a history in radio. So like if she sounds super profesh, there's a reason for it.
History and radio.
Yeah. So what, you were 7?
Oh boy.
16?
16, 17, 18. Yes.
That's awesome.
Who gave the mic to us? Can I tell a story? One time, it was a Christian radio show. So we're mostly playing worship, all the Christian bands. And we decided we would play a dashboard confessional song.
Okay.
Do you know
Oh, yeah.
And
they're
we
not Christian, right?
He was like I don't know, like on the fence, but we played a song called Screaming Infidelities.
Oh.
And like, as a 16-year-old, you don't know what infidelities are. And in the song, it's pretty explanatory of what infidelities are. And we had a mom actually call in and say like, I really don't appreciate you playing that on this Christian radio show that my kids are listening to. We were like, okay, we won't do it again. So it was a good lesson to learn. Yeah. That what you say and do impacts other people. So
I love that.
yeah.
Love that. All right. Do you want to go through the questions or do you want me to?
Let's see.
We have a couple.
Yeah, go through the Instagram ones. I'll pull up the doc.
Okay. How do you balance work and homeschool and all the things? Because you do that. You do doula work where you get called at any time, any day.
All the time.
And you're homeschooling 3 kiddos and keeping a house and 2 very high maintenance dogs who need a very detailed hair regimen.
They do.
Yeah.
Yes.
That's amazing.
How do you do it?
I think I have really good boundaries. I think that I try to stay in my own lane. So I know it sounds really cliche, but I feel like I try to listen really well to what God asks me to do, and I do those things. There are other things in my life that I feel like I would love to pursue, but it's not my season to do those things. And so I just keep in my own lane and do what I feel like God is calling me to do at the time. So right now that's loving families and caring for them during their pregnancy and their labor, and then caring for my own family, which is actually my priority above my doula practice. Homeschooling my kids and cooking. Oh man, the cooking and the laundry. The laundry just doesn't ever stop. So I do have 3 helpers that help with that. So yeah, but I think having really strong boundaries is important. So
Boundaries within like doula work as well. Like,
yeah, limiting the amount of clients that I take, limiting where they're delivering. So I do have a radius that I am really stern about. I don't go outside that radius. You were a little bit of the exception.
Sorry.
Yeah, you pushed my boundaries there.
Sorry.
It was so good though.
Good.
I was, yeah. If I have a personal connection with somebody, I typically will tend to say like, yeah, I'll take you. It's fine.
Also, I would have just like bullied you until like wore you down.
You would have been like emailing me. Believe it. Like, now I have your cell phone. Now I can call you. I'm going to call you every day. So yeah.
That's good though. That's because
it is. It's really important to have good boundaries in your life and to be able to be a healthy person. You know, if we are just completely putting ourselves out there all the time for everyone, we can't be good at anything. So,
yeah.
And there are days where I feel like, why am I doing all of this? It can be really hard, but you know, the hard things are what challenge us in life and cause us to grow and change. And so looking at it from that perspective too, of like, it's not just hard in life. This is about growth and change. And so.
I love that. I love that. You want to do one from yours?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So for those that don't know, what exactly is a doula?
Okay, I have struggled with this. This is my 11th year in practice. People ask me all the time, what do you do as a doula? And I do not have a 30-second elevator speech. Sometimes I'm wiping vomit off of somebody's face. Sometimes I'm catching your vomit. Sometimes I'm wiping poop off of you. You know, like doulas do it all. Double hip squeezes, position recommendations. A lot of my work actually, I feel, happens prenatally. So if a woman doesn't know what her options are, she doesn't have any choices. So education is a huge part of what I do prenatally, helping women prepare and know what their options are. So yeah, I would say that kind of just encapsulates what I do as a doula. Yeah. Just being present, holding that space, making sure people feel loved and seen. That's the biggest thing. So
Would you have,
go ahead.
In my clientele, I have a lot of like moms of daughters who are now at the baby age, and they're like, oh yeah, my daughter wants to hire a doula. I don't know what that is. And I don't actually ever know really how to answer it either, except for to say, yeah, they're the best people in the world. Don't know what exactly like how to phrase it of what you guys do, but every time they're like, I don't know if they really need it. I'm like, they do. They definitely do.
Yes. Yeah. And it's a big investment, you know, financially and time-wise, because I'm spending time with people prenatally, and our culture is so busy. And if it's your second, third, fourth baby, you have other commitments that you have going on. And so to take that time out of your day to meet with a doula, that's a sacrifice too. Not only time, but finances too. Yeah. So,
what would you say? So like say a mom is listening right now and she's, you know, on the fence or considering hiring a doula. What is like that prenatal, what does that look like for you? The prenatal like education side of it. Sure. What does that look like?
So I actually have a client portal that people, I am not the type of person that is going to follow behind you. Like, did you read this? Did you look at this? Did you study this? Did you watch this video? Did you listen to this podcast? I'm not the doula for you if that's what you want. I give you the resources and say, these are the things that you need to educate yourself about. You got to do the work, even though you've hired me. I'm going to be there at your birth and I'm going to support you in your choices, but you have to put the work in ahead of time. So,
can you see that? Can you see a difference between the people who actually like, can you just tell based off the birth that they have if they actually utilize the resources that you've given? I mean, to a certain extent of like, oh, this is a very educated family versus they don't even know what a placenta is type of thing.
I would say that's very rare. So people that are investing in doula care a lot about how their birth is going. They're almost always already educated a little bit about birth and the transformation that happens in birth. And so I do feel like people that tend to hire me, they are already on that road with education and understanding, you know, what physiologic birth looks like. So,
yeah. And I feel like, I don't know if my elevator pitch which I have given the pitch for you, a lot of people are like, oh, like you had a doula. Like, what's that like? Isn't that the same as a midwife? I'm like, no, what? Not at all. Yeah. I usually summarize and say like, she supports my birthing decision and advocates for me when I'm incapacitated and can't do it. Like
that's a great way to put it.
You know, to a certain extent, and like, or encouraging, in my scenario, encouraging Dave of like, hey, this is what she had said. Like, what would you think about this? And in a gentle, informed way.
Yeah, you're right. So that's another large aspect of what I do as a doula, supporting partners and helping them understand like what is happening in the moment. So, birth can be really intense and things can look really scary or sound really scary. So just reminding the grandmas in the room, the partners in the room, like this is normal. Like, yeah, she's screaming, but that's totally normal. She's going to have her baby in an hour. That's why she's screaming. Or, she's asking to go to the hospital because she's about to have a baby. So just reminding everybody in the room that this is normal, or sometimes it's that this isn't normal. And so maybe we need to go to plan B, and plan B is not a failure. Plan B means it's plan B. That's the next step that we have to take.
And you're so experienced with it that people can look at you and be like, like kind of just make eye contact. And I remember seeing video of Dave, like looking at you like, is this okay? And you're like, this is okay. And it's like, okay. And you can almost see the relief on his face of like, okay, all right. My wife is roaring like a lion. And this is very intense.
This is normal. It's so intense, but it's normal.
Yeah. One of the questions we got on Instagram was, what makes a doula great?
Well, I think what makes me great or my practice great is, this is difficult. I don't know. It's hard to be self-reflective because, I'm not receiving my care. So I can't, and what I think, this is funny. I'll try not to trail off, but what I think I've done a good job with at births is something that the client rarely ever mentions, so I'm like, I caught your vomit 7 times. Like that was really great of me. And then you're remembering that I rubbed your back or that I recommended a specific position. So I think it depends on who you ask, what makes a doula great. But I think for my practice specifically is just prioritizing clients and saying, you have hired me to take care of you during your pregnancy and your labor and your birth. And so I want to be there and I'm going to do everything I can to be there. And this is my 11th year in practice. I've only ever missed 2 births. Once had COVID. So I was like in the bed. I was not going to any births. And the second I was with another laboring patient. And then once she delivered, I went and relieved my backup doula. And
did you make it?
I did. I made it. Yes.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
How many hours had you worked then?
I don't know. 36. I mean, just crazy amounts. And this is something in my practice. I don't know if other doulas experience it, but I have a lot of back-to-back births, like a lot. I mean, probably 15 or 20 in the last 11 years where I'm leaving one birth and get a call and the next client is ready for me to join them.
Shift in the atmosphere. What?
Something. Yeah.
Do you believe in the full moon thing?
I believe that birth is cyclical. So I think that the moon has something to do with birth and when babies come. Yes, I do. I think,
Okay.
I think with both of mine, there were like snowstorms, like babies love snowstorms, and then they'd come and go. And then it's like babies love full moons, and then that would come and go.
You're like, oh man.
And I think at one point you would text me, you're like, is there anything? I'm like, I'm just sad that my baby is not coming. And I forget what exactly you sent, but it was something like, well, your baby will be there when she's going to be there and it's going to be perfect.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. It is hard to believe that in those moments too, especially when you get to 40 and a half weeks, 41 weeks. My baby's always made me wait, it's like always over the due date. And so I know personally from that experience that it just feels so heavy and, like I'm going to be pregnant forever.
Physically too.
Nobody is pregnant forever. You will have your baby. Your baby will come at just the right time if we leave it alone, you know? And when we leave it alone, birth typically works. So when we start messing with it and, trying to speed things along or whatever, that's typically when we start to see some of the issues in birth. So,
So then piggybacking off of that, you've seen so many births in the last 11 years, some that are, messed with and some that are not. Do you have a favorite birth / any tips for moms who are maybe in that waiting period?
Sure. Yeah. So in my doula practice, I serve in the hospital, I work at the local birth center, and then I also attend home births. So it just depends on where the client is giving birth. There are specific hospitals and providers that I do not work with because they do not have the client's best interest in mind. And that is just the baseline. People often don't pick up on red flags, or if they are picking up on red flags, they're just stuffing it down. And, if you're picking up red flags from your provider during your pregnancy, it is not going to get any better in labor. It's going to get worse. But most of the time it is just reminding, look at you have grown an entire human, an entire organ with very little input. You're not going to get to this end stage and something, not ever go into labor.
Yeah, that's
you
important.
are going to go into labor. You're not going to be pregnant forever. And just continuing to trust your body. Some people don't want that experience. They want to be induced, or they want to have a scheduled cesarean, and that's different. So I would say different things to those clients. Yeah. But a majority of people that hire me do want physiologic births and want to have a more natural experience. So just reminding them, it's going to happen. Waiting is good. It's a lot of change happens in the waiting too.
Yeah.
And I can speak personally from experience. My first he wasn't too late, maybe just 3 or 4 days. And then my second was a week. And the third,
don't say that.
Yeah. 9 days or something. So yeah. And it's hard to wait. Yeah. It is hard to wait, but we live in a culture that thrives on, everything is instant, so we post something and we expect in 30 seconds we're going to get 5 likes or whatever, or shares. Birth is not that way. Birth is a normal physiologic experience. And so it just happens, and it's different for every woman. And so why is, 40 weeks the cutoff when, we all have, my body is different from your body, and your cycle lasts shorter or longer than mine. So why are we saying that no, 40 weeks, that this is it for pregnancy?
Where did that come from? Do we know the history on that?
Oh, I know. Do you know? Or was it, you probably know better. Sorry, Shannon, or not Shannon, Amy is sitting over there. So we're all going to go to dinner after, in case you're curious. But there was a doctor in the 1400s. Am I right? That he did a study on 7 women and said, roughly these women go to about 40 weeks. So this is the standard, about 40 weeks. And then they carried it over 2 weeks like that. They said, okay, then this is the cutoff. And it was just an arbitrary number that he picked. Weird. They reevaluated it in my dates are all going to be off, and I'm going to post a link because I know I've read it. They reevaluated it, 2 doctors. They evaluated 5 women and then kept it the same. So. Yeah.
It's the weird answers on Family Feud. It's we surveyed 100 people. I'm who are these 100 people, and why are they giving those answers? You gotta get wider with that net, because
and think of all the data that is collected, and if we were to average that data, it would be obvious that women that are let go with their pregnancies, okay, you'll just carry as long as you'll carry. I'm sure if we averaged it would be 41 weeks, 41 and a half weeks. Yeah. I think especially for first time moms.
I truly believe what slowed down both of my labors was the stress of I can't go over this time. Man. And I think
we should talk about that.
When the due date came and went, my stress level was oh no, they're going to risk me out. They're going to risk me out. And then I kept tightening in more. And then finally when I just let go, fine, they'll induce me. My water broke. And then fine, she'll come when she comes. There she came.
Yeah. There's so much that we could talk about with surrender in labor and pregnancy as well. And I know you experienced that too, Aileeah, kind of talking you down off of we can't control this. This is not something that we can control. This is outside of our control experience. We can't make labor go faster outside of using chemicals and drugs. Yeah. We can do it, but I don't think that's really what you want. So
no. And what's weird, I told Irene this, that I was asking questions I knew the answer to. In my brain, I was Irene, or outwardly, I was Irene, how long is this going to take? Shannon, how long is this going to take? How much longer? Yeah. In my mind, I was saying, you idiot. You know that they don't know. Nobody knows. We have to wait for our time, our cue to go on and hit that surrender point, which I thought, I could strong arm. I thought I was nope. I can control things. It's great. I can.
And in our logical human brain, you know, I feel like women I've seen so many women go into this survival mode. It's like the body is like literally in survival mode, and the brain is just grasping for anything that will give hope for, you know, okay, well, I think I'm in transition, or now I'm pushing. So I'm only going to have, you know, half an hour of pushing. And then 4 hours later, you're still pushing with no baby. I think that is a normal human experience to want to, you know, kind of
have an itinerary.
Yeah, have an itinerary of like, okay, I only have to do this for 5 more hours. And I talk with clients about that a lot of, you know, if you get a cervical exam in labor and you are 3 centimeters and you're working really hard, you're having contractions every 3 minutes, I don't really care. You know, your cervical dilation means nothing to me because I've seen women go from 3 centimeters to having a baby in 30 minutes. I've seen somebody sit at 8 centimeters for 12 hours. You know, your dilation doesn't tell you how long your labor is going to be, how quick it's going to be, when your baby's going to be born. You just have to lean into it, and you have to surrender to what your body is doing. I know that sounds so cliche, like, oh, just surrender. That's just, you know, but you really do. You have to almost go to your most mammalian portion of your brain and check out. Like, you just have to ride the waves, you know? I often think of, we actually just went to an indoor water park, and I was telling the kids that if you get out there in the wave pool and you feel like you can't touch the bottom, just lay back and rest. Put your head up to the ceiling and just relax into the water. You're going to come to the surface. Like, it's going to happen. And so the same way in labor, you know, sometimes you just have to relinquish the control and let go and let your body float to the top. So, yeah.
I love that.
Yeah. And it's hard, right? In our culture, we can control everything. I mean, we have freaking computers in our pockets, and we can order food that's delivered to our door in a half an hour. And everything is just so instantaneous, and birth is not like that. And I feel like the longer I do this work, the harder that part is going to be. Because women are now kind of programmed to think, oh, I can do this in 30 seconds. I can do this in a minute. Birth is not like that. It takes days. Sometimes it takes a week for you to have a baby, and that is not abnormal. That can be a normal experience for women, especially first time moms. So
holler.
But it's good work. It's good, hard work. And I think if you can get to the other side, that's just going to empower you for the rest of your life. Yeah. You know?
Oh, the confidence I had post-birth.
And
I could live in that high.
That is my goal. When I go to births, I don't want you to remember Shannon did this, or she caught my puke, or she cleaned up the poop, or whatever. Yeah. I don't want you remembering that. What I want you to come away from your birth with is to feel empowered and to know, like, I actually did that. We spent some time alone. I don't know, maybe an hour. I actually kind of kicked everybody out. Do you remember that?
I remember that. Yep.
Where I was like, you all have to leave. Yeah. Like, turn the cameras off and go.
Yeah.
And they did.
Yeah.
They were nice about it. And I kind of cornered you on the toilet, and we just worked through contractions, just the two of us. Do you remember this?
Yeah, I remember. It was horrible. You coached me. Yeah, it wasn't great.
But what happened at the end, kind of as we were like wrapping up our time just together, you started bearing down and pushing Leo out. Like, you were doing it on your own. Nobody else was in there to witness it, to see it. And I mean, you were feeling her come down with every push, and I could see the empowerment in your eyes. Like, oh, I am doing this. Like, this is something that I am actually doing. And so, yeah, I always want to walk away from births. Like, I don't really care if you remember I was at your birth. I want you to feel like, wow, we just did that.
Yeah.
So,
well, I remember very well, like sitting on the toilet and you like coaching me and like just reminding me to breathe. Cause like, you know, you get in it and you're like, oh my gosh, there's another one coming, and you shouldn't feel that way, but it when it lasts for so long, it's how it is. And, and just having you remind me of like, you know, how to breathe, like what to focus on. And then, you put like stuff on my tummy, and it was just great. It was all, I mean, in hindsight, it was great. In the moment, it really sucked.
Talk about how miserable it is to be on the toilet when Shannon makes you sit on the toilet.
I mean,
it's worth it. Yeah. It's productive work, but
we can keep doing this for another 12 hours in your bed, or you can sit on the toilet for a few hours and you'll have your baby. So, and ultimately that kind of catapults women into realizing like, yes, that is our ultimate goal here. Like I want to bring my baby up onto my chest and snuggle my baby. And so that's kind of an encouraging part for women to know that, okay, if I just do this hard thing, it's going to get me through to having this baby.
Because I don't remember what you said, but I remember you saying something about being able to do hard things. I don't remember the verbiage, but I was like, okay. All right. I can do hard things. It's fine.
Yeah. And it's interesting too. You would think, oh, this is just such a normal, natural experience in life to have a baby, but your brain just goes blank.
Yeah.
And that's another reason that people should hire doulas, because you can do all the work. You can do all the research. You can know all the facts. You can know how long this is going to take, but in the moment you don't remember that. And so
it's so weird.
Being reminded that, hey, you are making progress. Like I don't need you to have your cervix checked to know that you are making progress. Or in the hospital, you know, people will say, oh, we have to, you know, we need to check you. We need to know where you're at. And I'm like, well, I can tell you she's like 8 centimeters. Yeah. So, and then they check her and there she is, 8 or 9 centimeters. We just, you know, we want all these metrics, and birth is not linear, and birth doesn't always make sense, and that's okay. And just needing to be reminded that it's normal. It's okay. So
that's why you should hire a doula, because you are not yourself in labor.
Because I read everything I could get my hands on with my first, and I was like, okay, you know, one of my best friends is a doula. It's fine. Like, yes, she's states away, but I'll just text her while I'm in labor. Joke's on me. I don't even know where my phone was the entire time. No. But like, I was like, oh yeah, I've got all the knowledge. I can do it. And you can't. You just
you go into survival mode.
You're in this space primal. Where you're aware people are there, but you aren't aware that people are there. You're even there yourself. So it's so beneficial to have someone there. Like somewhere in the back of your ears, you can hear like, you're doing good.
Yes.
Closer and closer. I remember Shannon saying that all the time. It's like closer and closer. And I'm like, I remember being like, oh, I'm going to punch you in the face, but then also being like, I love you, but I'm going to punch you in the face.
And on my side of things, I always feel like, oh, I'm just being this cliche, annoying person. But I know that those...
It's sleeping through the cracks of
those phrases matter, and it keeps you going. So, and doulas are the only people that can fill that role in the maternity care team. So your nurses at the hospital, your midwife, your partner, they're not going to know what to say. They're going to be in the corner crying. So doulas are the only ones that can fill that niche in birth of knowing, you know, we're kind of a third party observer, but also we know what you want in birth, and we know some of the things that were non-negotiables for you. So helping to kind of push you past where you think you can go and get you to where you want to be.
And also to stop anybody else who's there with mom from like intervening too much too. Like, nope, she can do it. Yes. She's okay.
Yeah.
Everything's normal.
Dads can hold the line to a certain extent, but I think you need a female there to be like, nope, this is what's important to her. We've talked about this in detail. Your questionnaire that I filled out was very extensive, and like, Dave could fight all day long, but at the end of the day, he just wants his wife to be safe and healthy, and he doesn't. It's not that he didn't research. He did research, but like, he doesn't have the desire to dig into the information like I do, or like you have. And so like, you need a doula there to be like, nope, this is what's happening, or kind of be the guard, really. You're the guard of the birth.
Maybe I should start explaining my role in that way. Like, oh, I just guard births. I'm just there with, you know, just guarding.
Your birth guardian angel.
Yeah. I do tell people that are interviewing me, you know, your partner knows you best, because they might know, you know, Jake might know why you're crying or why you're kind of pulling away. He will probably know those things. And because I don't know you as well as your partner knows you, they're going to understand those things. But I'm going to understand the birth aspects. So together we make a great team, because they know you more emotionally, and I'm going to see what's happening physically and be able to kind of meet your needs in that way.
I love that.
Yep. It's a team approach. You know.
Well, that's why it's a care team.
Do birth on your own. Some people do unassisted births. And that, you know, that's a choice that some people tend to make. I just cannot imagine personally wanting to make that choice when I know that there's this alternative reality, right? Where you are surrounded by women, by your partner, if you have a partner that love you and want the best for you.
Yeah.
So
Do you find a difference in people's personality? Like, I always thought that I would want to be just alone and by myself. And then you do for certain parts of the labor.
Sure.
But having the experience where there were people like care about me, like even now, I was like, well, if we have a third, I told Jacob, I was like, I wouldn't care if your mom was there. And he's like, what? It's like, yeah, it's not the first one. The first one I wanted to like recluse.
Yeah.
Now that I know what it's like to have people, I wouldn't, I don't mind having people as long as they're few select people that I trust. Or do you find like most people... Does it go either way with personality type?
I think it definitely goes either way. And I think the more babies you've had, the more confident you are. You know what your body, kind of what your body is going to do. And so you feel a little bit less vulnerable to sharing that experience with other people. Yeah. Yeah. And I've had clients that hire me that say, I really don't like physical touch. I really don't want a lot of verbal affirmation. And then those are typically the clients that are, somebody help me, please.
I need help. I was like, I don't think anyone will touch me. And then, I was like, please bring it on.
Yeah. You need that.
Yeah. Any final questions, Irene?
How do you find a doula? How do you recommend someone find a doula that pairs with their wishes and personalities?
Well, most doulas offer an interview, so that's typically the way people find me. Obviously, the internet people are, Googling and finding doulas that way, doulas near me. But having that personal connection with somebody reaching out and saying, hey, can I interview you? Can I ask you some questions? That's probably the best way to find. And I actually encourage people, don't stop with me. Like, even if we had a great connection, talk with other doulas. There might be somebody that you have a better connection with. So
because you asked me if I had talked to anyone else, but that was good, because then I felt like, good, she's not just after my money. She cares that I
and I'm not the best doula for everybody, so you might find somebody else that you connect better with, and that's okay. That's great. I want you to have the birth that you desire, and sometimes that looks like me not being there, so that's okay.
But also, if you know, like I got to witness you in action, and I was like, I liked her vibe. I want that.
We went deep the very first time we met. We don't have time to. We don't have time for that, but we did
another podcast.
We connected well.
We'll talk further after this. It was all about parasites and poop.
Yeah, thanks for parasites and poop. But I was just going to say thank you for putting doulas out there. I think that doulas are a great part of the maternity care team, and doctors, nurses, midwives can't do it all. So there's a lot of great doulas in our area, Central Illinois area. So
where can people find you and connect with you?
Sure. So I'm old, so I have a website and I have Facebook, Shannon Bacus Birth Doula Services on Facebook, and www.bloomingtonnormalbirthdoula.com. And also my podcast, Birthing from the Inside Out.
Love it.
I'm going to help you.
Send us out, wife. You got 5 seconds.
Okay. Bye, guys.
Bye.
Thanks for being with us today. Follow us on Instagram at underthesun_podcast. We'd love to meet you.
Please help us out by subscribing on YouTube and leaving a review on Spotify or Apple Podcasts. We'll see you next time. Please remember, this information is made available to you for informational and educational purposes only. It is in no way a substitute for medical advice.